Good evening, ladies, gentlefers, and my lovely NBs. We are here live at Las Vegas, Nevada for the 2025 FBA Draft. My name is Marcus Baylor, and to my right is Ryan Eastman. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing excellent, Marcus. We were here just a few months ago in the finals, and now we're here to see the start of 48 players' FBA career.
For sure. And I'm super excited to see how things are going. Having a chance to see all of these young furs excited, all dressed up, looking looking very spiffy tonight as we go ahead and get into this year's draft.
Yes, I'm not going to make comments on the wardrobe selections here tonight. I'm not a fashionista. Some players definitely make the choice of what they wear here. But Marcus, any quick thoughts before we get to the first team on the clock?
Honestly, I'm just gonna say it's gonna be a very exciting time. I'm assuming there's going to be some shenanigans as per usual, but no matter what happens, I know it's gonna be a fun one.
Yes, and I see the commissioner taking to the stage, so let's cut on down to hear what he has to say. Good evening. I would like to thank you all for tuning in for the first round of the FBA draft. Here in the first round, teams will have 5 minutes to make your selection. Once your team has been announced to be on the clock, the timer will start. You will be contacted by the FBA office, in this case, Busy, regarding your team's selection. If you do not respond or do not tell us your selection by the end of your allotted time, we will go based on your submitted draft board. Should a trade take place involving the current pick, the clock will reset to 3 minutes for the new team. Tonight, 24 players will begin their FBA journey. And I think I speak for everyone that we look forward to the path you will all blaze as you set out on your career. With that, Queen's Pride, you are on the clock. Well, Marcus, Queen's first pick in this draft. They had this last year after trading for it, and this year they earned it themselves.
Yeah, getting a little bit of luck on their side here in this draft lottery, and I can say that this is going to be a very interesting one here for Queens, as last year they finished with a 31-49 record. Not one of the greatest out there. It wasn't the worst, but you definitely want to see this team improve in some shape or form. Now, obviously, the biggest question marks currently will be their shooting guard and their power forward position. So I'm very curious to see what they plan on doing with this pick.
Yeah, I have to imagine with what the top five were ranked as, that we're going to see a guard come off the board here. Like the top three guards, top three draft ranked players are guards. Now, I will say, I've been contacted before this draft saying, do not freak out, whatever Queens does. They did it last year. They did something a little crazy. Don't freak out.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to the decisions from Queens, yeah, it shocked everybody what happened last year, but I think that this is going to be very intriguing as to what they're trying to build in the future. Because at the end of the day, it's not just having the best player available at times. Sometimes it's trying to see what kind of culture fit you're trying to do as well within this scenario. So, if they do decide to go guard here, I wouldn't be surprised. But if they decide to go ahead and go for a big fur as well, I wouldn't be surprised about that either. There hasn't been a lot of like rumors on the Queen's end when it comes to dishing out contracts this at this point, but it's just kind of a wait and see of what direction they really want to go to for the future of this franchise.
Yeah, so there are a lot of options they could go with the top three all being guards. I feel like they have to pick one up there. But, of those three, do you have one that stands out in your mind?
Um ooh, that's a good one here. I would probably have to say obviously Rowan Fane being the number one pick overall. I mean, like with the skills that that they have within there, it's pretty easy for them to really pick. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go for Haley Leonard's here.
Equally good picks in my mind, in my opinion. And speaking of, it
Yeah.
looks like the pick is in. will cut on down to the stage. With the first pick in the 2025 FBA Draft, the Queen's Pride select Rowan Thane, German Shepherd out of Canis University of Melbourne. Congratulations on being the first overall pick, Rowan Thane. With that, Edmonton Excavators are on the clock. Well, Marcus, it was a guard and it was the one you pointed to.
A surprise to nobody. The number 1 overall is gonna go to the top draft pick of this year, Rowan Thane. So it just pretty much matches 2 peas in a pod. It comes through a very interesting time as they are having one of their guards going into free agency, and I don't know whether or not they're going to bring him back, but I feel like it's going, if they do bring them back, it's going to be an interesting seeing the guard depth that's going to be made here.
Look, the reason why I was contacted was because last year Queens decided to pick up Carly Diggs at 4, despite her being ranked down, I think it's 17. So to say that this was an obvious pick only applies to the rest of the teams. And honestly, I like this pick. I think Rowan's a great selection here. I think Carly stood out far more than I expected. I think there's a lot of pressure on her, and now they bring in someone to potentially either go to the 2 spot or have her slide to the 2 spot. I could see either way working. But with that, let's switch on over to Edmonton, the team that traded up to the number 2 overall pick after essentially clearing away their roster.
Oh, 100%. Like, they've made a lot of moves before free agency really officially started, deciding to go ahead and put in a renegotiation on their side on Zachary, which shocked everybody. I would assume. It even shocked me. I had my jaw completely on the floor. And not even a week or 2 later, they decided to go ahead and trade Xavier Clark over to the Swashbucklers to be able to obtain this pick. So obviously, this is a huge pivot here for Edmonton.
It is, and I mean, I was gonna say if Rowan didn't go number 1, he was who I had going number 2. I feel like Edmonton has struggled to find that, I don't want to say star, but that it factor at the point position. They've tried with 2 different draft picks, and they haven't really worked out over the last 4 years. Obviously, Raymond Lee's still on the team, and with Fiorella Lopez going into free agency, I don't know if they're going to bring her back. I could say center here. Obviously, they just got rid of Xavier, so they really do need a center too now. But I've heard rumors that they're going after some of the Bangor players.
Yeah, a couple. Not yeah, Angel from the center position, and also Ash Van Zandt, which is also a huge surprise considering that both of those players played huge roles in them and helping them win a chip a couple of years ago. So seeing that they're really trying to, go big or go home to kind of really kickstart and really put Edmonton on pace to potentially be a juggernaut for the West, even though it's really hard to do with how well that conference is. But obviously they're trying to go ahead and do whatever they can to really kind of make that statement move, and they've done quite a lot here. So I'm very curious as to what player they're going to select to really kind of kickstart it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their roster and looking at the top draft picks for this class, you still have to expect maybe one of the 2 top guards that are left. Like I said, you brought up Haley Leonard's possibly going number 1. Scott Haynes would not be a bad selection here either. And then obviously we have a bit of a legacy player down in Soren Smith's potentially. Could be, I don't know, at 6, I wouldn't call him much of a reach if they decide to go down and grab Soren.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is going to be very intriguing on how they really go with this. I mean, there's so many options here because of the fact that, yes, they could go for center, but some might say it's a little bit of a reach. But obviously, with the fact that they're going to need somebody to partner up with Nico. No, excuse me, not Nico. I don't know why my brain is going out.
Nikolai.
Nikolai. Yeah, Nikolai. With him being on his final year of his contract, with him being the most expensive player now. But it's going to be very intriguing if they're going to go down that route. But obviously, they are clearly wanting to go a little bit younger, and we'll see how it goes.
And speaking of, the pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage. With the second overall pick, the Edmonton Excavators select Deontay Lavelle, Jaguar from Fairview University. Congratulations, Lavelle, on being the second overall pick. And with that, the Albany Alphas are on the clock. Well, a player that we did not bring up as a possibility, but plays that guard, shooting guard, small forward position that, replacing Zachary Cooper after the renegotiation seems like the direction they want to go here.
Yeah, for sure. And we also, it could be a very flexible position depending on what they want to do as well. Because it's not even just with Zach, but also Baxter Buckley is going into free agency also. So it could be an either or situation depending on what they want to do this free agency. Obviously, with Ash fans, if they don't get a player like Ash, you can easily see Deontay be able to go and slide into that small forward spot. So I can't really necessarily be upset about this pick. It's definitely a little bit surprising because this is technically going to be our first reach, but not that much of a reach per se. But yeah, I think that this is going to be a very interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I am interested to see what the 19-year-old can do in Edmonton. A lot of pressure being put on him on a team that is in the literally a nuclear rebuild. They got rid of everything but Nikolai, really. So there's gonna be a lot of pressure put on this youngster to show up and step up. And speaking of, let's switch on over to the Albany Alphas, who are on the clock right before the draft, waiving Watterson. Talking about a heavy contract, $19 million was owed this year, but now frees up that cap space for Albany. And what does Albany do now with now a hole at center position, but honestly in need of a small forward shooting guard as well? I kind of expected Lavelle going here at number 3 in my draft board.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's gonna be very interesting. With the fact that their guards are pretty much set. Natalie Davenport obviously being on the forefront as the starting point guard. And with the fact that Lavelle has been picked up, it's definitely an interesting situation. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go for Minnie Barry here. While not necessarily a small forward, could be a player that they could use to fill in when it comes to that front court. Because when it comes to like the small forward position, they would have to go for a reach if they want to go based on need. So if they do decide to go for guard and kind of stack up a little bit, I wouldn't be too surprised considering the scenario. But at this juncture, I wouldn't really be too surprised if they just said, you know what, we're not gonna go too deep into the bag in this and go Mini Berry.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them taking the best forward on the board. I still kind of lean towards that guard setup. We know we saw them playing the 3 guard small ball at the end of year with Akiak Pratt coming
Mm-hmm.
in to play small forward, but that's just such a tough thing to do in the FBA nowadays. So I think they need to get a solid shooting guard locked in to complement Davenport. So I could see Haley Leonard's going here.
Yeah, I can't blame you for thinking that as well when it comes to that. I believe Haley Berry. Let me go ahead and double check
Haley
when it
Berry,
comes
you're
to.
combining players
I
now.
mean, oh my goodness, I don't know why.
Haley
Haley
Leonard's.
Leonard, Haley Leonard, excuse me. But yeah, Haley Leonard. I mean, she doesn't have a lot in size, being 6 foot. So like, I do think that if they do go down that route, that's gonna be a little bit of an issue. In my opinion. But I would probably say if they want to go ahead and go for that 3 guard, Scott Hayes might be the better option. Well, yes, they are definitely more so on the slasher type of player comparatively. I do think that that's a little bit more fitting if they want to go all in on the 3 guard to have a little bit more size compared to if they were to go the Haley Leonard's route.
And speaking of, the pick is in. Let's see what their selection is at number 3. With the 3rd overall pick, the Albany Alpha select Minnie Berry, the Mojave ground squirrel out of UFLA. Congratulations, Minnie. With that, the Plymouth Taproots are on the clock. Well, well, Marcus, you got it correct again.
Look at me knowing things. But yeah, I can't necessarily blame them for this. Because honestly, their front court has gotten a bit older over the years, and so with the fact that Viren Kivar is also heading into free agency, obviously with the move with Watterson, I can't really necessarily blame them for deciding to go down this route.
Kivar has been in the league longer than I have been broadcasting, if that tells you anything. So, definitely a
Yes.
player that you would expect to need to be replacing. And again, I don't hate the Minnie Berry pick here. Again, best forward available. It kind of solves that power forward position question now that Cassius is gone. I mean, I think last year they were running Zinbass at power forward, but it looks like they were going to slide him down to center. And Minnie will probably be the
Right.
starting power forward unless they go after someone big in free agency.
Yeah, it really just depends. I mean, there are a lot of bigs that are available in free agency, of course, with a couple that have been added in as of late. It's going to be interesting to see what happens within free agency, but I cannot blame them to go ahead and go for Barry here. I mean, especially if they want to go ahead and have somewhat of a younger role, kind of maybe slide Jonas Acosta in that small forward spot too. So it's definitely a little bit of I guess, a retooling phase for Albany because they have been doing. I know they haven't really been doing very hot the past couple of years, but I think now they're really trying to go ahead and say go young, try and develop as much as they can, and perhaps be able to have some build something special.
All right, now let's go to the team that I personally, on my mock draft, had trading out of this pick, even though I have a feeling they're not going to go that route. The Plymouth Taproots, one of the top teams
Ooh.
last year, but found their way with the 4th overall pick thanks to a trade the previous season where they gave up a first round pick and this year's first round pick in order for Biloxi's pick, which turned into the 4th overall pick. What do you do with Plymouth with a team that has everything you could already need on your roster besides, your rookie center going into free agency?
That's definitely gonna be one of those situations where um the concern is if whether or not if there's going to be another team that will pounce on Alvaro. That's kind of like the big hope that other teams don't do because this is going to be one of the first teams that doesn't have a lot of available cap space to kind of play around with, and they still also have to continue to build up their bench a little bit more when it comes to players trying to fill up the spots. It's certainly not, it's certainly like a good problem to have in this scenario. But they can continue to do what they always do when it comes to when it comes to the Plymouth Taproot. Keep selecting bigs so that you guys can still have a deep a deep uh a deep pool of bigs to play around with just in case something happens. So obviously the number one thing is to make sure that Alvaro doesn't go anywhere, 100%. But obviously, if something were to happen, if he does decide to go ahead and go on to another team, having that little safety net could be a good thing. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we see Rex come in or if Jesus Hamilton decides to go ahead and be a little bit of a surprise to sneak in.
I mean, it's not bad to initially hedge your bets. I'm personally leaning on the future of trying to replace Tanya Feckel. Feckel, I'm not going to say is old. She has been around the league for a while. And with only 1 year left on her contract, it would not surprise me if they wanted to go ahead and replace her with the future. So
Yeah, I can
I'm gonna
definitely
I say
understand that.
I'm gonna slide down the board. I think they're gonna reach a little bit and go for Dresden here.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. It's definitely a like I don't think that's necessarily going to be a bad decision overall because like, with Plymouth already being one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, looking a little bit towards the future as you said, Tanya's not going to get any younger and we don't know how well obviously she still can be considered to be in her prime, but there's not a lot of time on that prime left so having that opportunity to be, hey, maybe someone to come in and be mentored by her would be a good thing in the long run.
Yep, and the pick is in. The clock winding down and striking zero. I see the commissioner coming to the stage with the envelope in paw. With the fourth overall pick, the Plymouth Taproots select Jesus Hamilton, the Lynx out of Furry State University. Congratulations, Hamilton. With that, Winnipeg Voyagers are on the clock. Well, Marcus, you were right about them going center. They're hedging their bets. They think they're Vegas.
I mean, at the end of the day, like Plymouth just likes their bigs. I don't know what's up with them and their bigs, but they just love them. They do. They really do.
Well, and
But I can't.
that brings up a question. I mean, Jesus was ranked ninth. Rex was ranked seventh. What did they see in Hamilton over Rex?
That's a pretty good question. I mean, um, it could potentially be. Well, hold on. Let me make sure to double check because Jesus is 7'4". Meanwhile, with Rex, a Rex is 7'2", so it could potentially be a size thing. Um, Obviously, sometimes size is king. I'm not being biased. I'm not being biased, but I think that one of the things is that just because of the fact that like having that amount of size, especially like if you have that on your secondary unit, it is incredibly helpful to have. And honestly, having a top four pick be your primary backup big can do wonders for a team. So obviously, with Jesus being able to not have to worry about stepping in immediately, get some experience there, standing behind Alvaro if he does decide to go ahead and sign his contract with Plymouth, um, and decide to go elsewhere to really kind of put the staple on being a top big here in the FBA. It's not that bad of a gig.
Yeah, I mean, it could always be draft bait. Trade bait as well. There's gonna be a team in this draft that just missed out on the center that they really wanted, and they may get swindled in this draft. But let's jump
Yeah.
on over to Winnipeg, who, by the way, I have received word will be participating in Montana's Halloween opening for the FBA season. So it'll be Montana versus Winnipeg.
Okay. That's gonna be fun. Gonna be very interesting to see, especially as we're heading into Winnipeg with Francois Martineau kind of leading the fray as well with Kevin Malka. The pretty much the duo that has been holding that mantle for the longest of time and will continue to for the next couple of years. Now for Edmonton, it's definitely an interesting.
Winnipeg,
Uh,
the other
yeah,
Canadian team.
yeah, Winnipeg. it, it it's going to be very interesting of what they're going to be planning on doing here with with it because they do have Zhao Zing heading into free agency, another one of the many bigs that are going into free agency this year. As well, I believe Eric Baltov and Tyrone Gale as well. So they are having a couple of missing pieces that are entering into free agency, and they're gonna have to pick and choose because they don't really have. While it's a decent amount of cap space, I don't think it's gonna be enough to keep all of them.
No doubt. I mean, I think they have a lot of guard talent here at the top that they might want to go with, just because if they want to go forward with a new look at the guard position. Obviously, they won the ring years ago with Baltave. I think it was in his rookie year, in fact. But the success hasn't followed after that. So maybe moving on from him, they have three guards at the top they could easily choose from. They could reach for reach. It's the fifth pick, and Rex ranks 7th. They could easily go ahead and just grab a center for the future as well. But I do see the pick in. Let's cut down to the stage. With the 5th pick in the FBA draft, the Winnipeg Voyagers select Haley Leonards, the Vienna Blue Rabbit out of Kirkwood University. Congratulations, Leonards, on being selected. With that, the Tennessee Moonshiners are on the clock. Well, they ended up going best guard available, Marcus.
Yep, and honestly, I think that's a really good pick. With the fact that Haley Leonard's had slide down just a little bit here, going down to number 5. It's definitely a sweet deal, especially if they are going to go ahead and move on from Baltiv, as you said. They did win a ring with Eric, but there hasn't been like that same amount of success. So deciding to go ahead and move on from him was going to be a potential possibility, and it does seem like that's going to be the case.
I mean, it definitely could be. They could still be looking to bring him back, and just having trying to create some competition for the position. I don't think Francois, with how much money they put into him, they're gonna bench anytime soon. However, I mean, we could see that turn into a trade at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends. I mean, that's a lot of cap to hit with Francois at the end of the day, and that's going to be uh I think teams are probably going to ask quite a lot to really take that in. So it would be more of a salary dump in situation if that was the case, which is a wild thing to say because we're talking about Francois Mondew here. But it really becomes one of those decisions of whether or not if Winnipeg is willing to go ahead and hit that reset button and try and rebuild into that next era. I mean, have seen teams in the past have a really tough time trying to regain that kind of success. I think Hawaii comes to mind when it comes to that. As players got older, it became clearer and clearer that that era is pretty much on its way out. So it's going to be interesting how that's going to handle as we go ahead and head into this season.
Yeah. Now let's start talking about Tennessee, a team that uh, has a lot of options, honestly, because they're another team that besides Arthur Selby and Lucas Berger-Kane, I would not say their lineup is set. Obviously, they just traded for Harper uh, Kaggle Shufflebottom, but I don't think of her as a long-term starter. I think she's more of a bench role player.
Yeah, I mean, like it's gonna be interesting how things are gonna go. Obviously, we're going with Kaggle Shufflebottom is not too much of a surprise in all honesty, but I think the interesting thing here with this move is essentially they're gonna have to make a lot of pretty big decisions since like this outside of whoever they're gonna be picking and as well as the other picks that they have because I believe they have a ton of picks this draft this time around. Um, I'm very curious to see that they might be transitioning into that rebuild phase, in my opinion. Yes, they have Arthur Selby for another year, but again, last year, and he is going to be 18 million, and it's going to be depending on whether or not he's going to demand that similar amount of money to stay in Tennessee or decide to move on and go elsewhere.
Yep, and speaking of, the pick is in. Let's see who has been selected 6th overall. With the 6th overall pick, the Tennessee Moonshiners select Wojciech Piotrowski, the brown bear from KKB Krakow. Congratulations, Piotrowski, on being selected. With that, sorry, I'm confirming who's on the clock. It is Hawaii on the clock with the 7th pick. So, Marcus, not a bad. Again, Tennessee could not go wrong needing every position, basically. Reaching for one of the best centers in this draft that, really showed up at the combine games. I was very impressed with how he played.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had plenty of highlights to happen within those combine games, and finally being able to see that high flyer come out of nowhere and go ahead and get for this pick. And this honestly is around this time where we're going to see a lot of bigs starting to come off the board as well. That's kind of been a theme throughout these past few years is when one center starts picking up, everyone starts desperately trying to go ahead and grab a center. Now, it's a little bit iffy this year, especially considering the fact we are very rich in the center position in this free agency alone. So we may or may not see it this year, but usually this is around the time when we do see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually a run on centers at some point, and usually the teams that are find themselves in the lottery often have a need at the center position. Causation is
Yeah.
not what is it? God, my brain's blanking on what the phrase is. Uh, ca- uh, Causality and God, well, I've lost it, Marcus. It's only been 30
It's
minutes since the
okay.
draft has started.
It's your brain's a little bit melting. It's totally fine. But let's go ahead and head over into Hawaii, who is a team that to keep it, as nice as possible, they did not have one of the best years that they would like. They haven't had a pretty decent year in a while now. And considering where they are at, they have a lot of decisions that they're going to have to make. Especially considering they have a lot of 1 year contracts coming in, and there are some that are long term, but they're very, very tradable.
Yeah, and I mean they have a good center with CC. I could definitely see them going for a compliment. We've seen Rex kind of people dance around selecting Rex thus far, and the Big Bunny might be an option here to complement CC's play style. Um, I mean Marshall, I'm a little concerned. That's a good contract for 4 years. I don't know if they're committing long term to Marshall though. Or
Yeah,
CC,
it's
sorry,
it's
CC's the other way. I'm flipping who I'm thinking about here. CC, I think CC had issues last year stat wise. God, my brain I need to look and see what the stats were for Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly gonna be something because, like, I mean, currently when it comes to the contract side of things, their front court is basically locked, I believe, especially with Marshall Torrega having that 4 year, very, very team friendly deal, might I add. But if they do decide to go down the route of a big, I wouldn't really be too surprised if they decided to go ahead and commit into drafting, well, not drafting, trading um Marshall to another team that might be desperate for a center if they're not able to go ahead and get a player that they are really eyeing for. But I think right now, when it comes to it, I wouldn't be too surprised if they go for Scott Hayes either, because of the fact that, like, there really isn't any guard in Hawaii that really kind of bounces off of me really immediately. And considering the fact that a lot of their guards are on their final year of their contracts, I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide to go down that route too.
Okay, I found my notes where I said why I thought Marshall might be on the chopping block. They finished fifth in the team in scoring, and yeah, they have a great friendly contract, but as the lowest denominator on a team that struggled last year, you kind of start wondering, are they potentially their future is that up in the air possibly?
Yeah.
11.7
It's
points. They got outscored by both rookies on the team because I mean Barlow and Martin. You would hope that they keep their rookies at least past their rookie deal. They invested those picks in them.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely understand that now. Um, if they do decide to move on from Marshall, I think this pick could be a very strong indication of that. Um, but I think that if they do decide to go ahead and, like, continue to try and develop Marshall as best as they can, especially considering the fact that it is very team friendly, it is very flexible, for the long term of it all. if they do decide to go ahead and say, you know what, we'll go ahead and give you one more shot and try and continue to build the guard position.
Yep, and with that, the pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage. With the 7th pick in the FBA draft, the Hawaii Kahuna select Rex LeBlanc, the checkered giant rabbit out of Paw Point University. Congratulations, LeBlanc. With that, the Oregon Swashbucklers are now on the clock. Well,
Well, um,
I mean, picking the
like
best center on the board that's still there, I mean, they were the best ranked center of this draft class, in fact.
yes, they were the best ranked center of this draft class, and with the fact that you know, you're not reaching either because they are they Rex was the seventh best player coming into the top 24. So, you know, it's a match made in heaven. So Hawaii will be able to go ahead and
Are you saying
be
someone's
able
playing
to
the
go
slot
ahead.
machines a few too much?
Maybe we are in Vegas
Seven,
after all.
7 lining up?
Do we need? Hey, you know, if they decided to make, if Rex decided to go ahead and make his number also 7, then maybe we were playing a little bit of playing some slots up in Hawaii, you know. Uh, but in any case, that does really give a strong indication of where their confidence is with Marshall overall. And as you said, that this could be a good match between with Rex and CC. So it really just depends on how well CC works with this new rookie coming in compared to Marshall. So obviously, this is going to be a little bit of a competition happening at the center position for Hawaii, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out as we head into the preseason.
Yeah, so now I want to go ahead and switch on over to Oregon, who I will continue to sing the praise of with that trade with Edmonton. The fact that they
Yeah,
managed to get Xavier Clark and only move back 6 spots. Because I want you to look at the board, Marcus. Who is still available on that board right now?
well, if we look at who's available at that board, is Scott Hayes, and honestly, considering like it always happens every year that one guard will find themselves slipping a little bit more than people expect, and Scott Hayes is no exception. I would not be surprised if they decide to go and go for that just outright. You might as well just go ahead and just rush over, and be like, all right, we already got it. This is it.
In my mind, and I've been saying this for every I feel like every draft the past 3 seasons with Oregon. It's like, what's your plan after Marcus Knight? Marcus Knight has been around
Yes.
a long time. He has been through a lot with this team. He was undrafted. He
Yes.
signed with uh, Texas, and he was part of the big transition to Oregon. He has been in the league coming up on 20 or 13 seasons. So
Yeah, like we have to give credit where credit is due. Marcus Knight has definitely had a legendary career for
oh,
sure.
Hall of Fame worthy.
It
Just missing the
yes,
ring.
it
That's the only thing he's missing is a ring.
yes. And honestly, this is a prime opportunity for the Swashbucklers to be able to achieve that. They have a very good roster in my opinion. Yes, they didn't do I believe they didn't do too hot last year. Let me double check to make sure.
I mean, they
Like,
finished
yeah,
in the
they
lottery,
had
so they missed the playoffs.
yeah, yeah. So like they had the second worst, but like they have a lot of great young players to be able to make some kind of noises here. And with Xavier Clark coming in, as well, I think having Scott Hayes to be able to go ahead and, you know, learn alongside Marcus Knight, since this is going to be the last year of his contract, and possibly be a potential passing of the torch as well as they continue to go ahead and try and build this to be a major success here, um, to kind of make some noise and be a potential uh playoff contender at least, or potentially even kind of shock somebody and really start making some noise here in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Edmonton trading up to get the player they wanted, because I don't think Lavelle would have been here at 8, but I think
No,
Oregon might have been the winner of the trade, getting a center that I'm going to admit is not a star center, but they don't necessarily need a star center. They needed someone who was going to be serviceable on a contract that they could afford to pay, which they got. It's going to get worse as the next two seasons come. But again, Marcus Knight going into a potential free agency might be able to reduce his contract a little bit more depending on how he plays. It would be an opportunity to grab the second ranked player in this draft class and start grooming them for the future.
100%. I really do agree with you here. Like you said, um, Xavier Clark is definitely a serviceable starter. Could be like a average to above average, at this current possession. And obviously, if things don't really work out, you can, possibly put him into a renegotiation if needed. Um, but I think at the end of the day, I think that this is a very good, position for the Swashbucklers to be in because they can do a lot here, and I think having Scott come in and really be that future face could really help, boost the excitement here for Swashbuckler fans.
Speaking of the pick is in, let's see what it is. With the 8th overall pick, the Oregon Swashbucklers select Scott Hayes, the Timberwolf out of Haverford Academy. Congratulations, Hayes, on being selected. With the 9th pick, the Seattle Summit are on the clock.
You're a surprise to no one.
Well, I mean, it could have been a surprise. Honestly, they could have gone elsewhere, but with the fact they traded for a center and they signed a center, they drafted a center last year, I would have been shocked if they decided to go that route again. But they could have. You never know with some teams. But
You never know.
Scott, I think, is a great pick. If after the draft when I'm doing my grades, I think Oregon's going to get an A+ for me because they turned the 2nd overall pick into Scott Hayes, the 2nd ranked player, and Xavier Clark. They pulled a rabbit out of the hat. Sorry, they didn't pull a rabbit. They pulled a wolf out of their hat. 2 wolves, in fact.
Yeah, no, they
Two
really
canines. Sorry, a husky and a wolf.
Yes. So yeah, I completely agree with you here. I mean, being able to get a player that's already, being seen as, a very good starting center, especially with still pretty young, still have some time to develop to really kind of, solidify, that contract. But being able to go ahead and get potentially your future, star guard to be the face of your franchise the next few years is also a huge plus also. So being able to see that Marcus could potentially already have, a young partner to be able to go ahead and take under his paw, his little web paws, and really kind of blossom Scott to really kind of, embody that leadership that I know Marcus has. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen here for this swashbuckler team. I think they're going to be very scrappy.
Yep. And now we get back to the first non-lottery pick, Seattle. They traded up, in fact, last year. Well, they traded last year. It turned out to be a beneficial trade when they got moved Blake Kelly. They ended up with the 9th pick this year. They have a lot of free agent open slots. Obviously, with Vilcasitis heading in the free agency, they have Leon Delmont in free agency. And I believe they also have Ackerman in free agency. So that's 3 of their starters that they have to potentially re-sign or look for the draft to replace.
Seattle's a very interesting, team because like they have had a lot of success within these past recent years, especially with, Leon Delmont, being that forefronted player. Of course, even having to switch positions from point guard to the power forward position to continue to have that longevity within the league. Even with that decision being made here, they still had done very well. But now they're in a situation where they're gonna have to pick and choose of whether or not if they want to go ahead and continue to go over the hump. Because the West is still very, very good. there are a lot of great teams here that if they were in the East, if we swap one of those teams with the Eastern Conference, they can easily be one of the top teams in that said conference. So it's going to be a really big decision if they want to go ahead and shake things up a little bit. They do, as you said, they have plenty of cap space, but also a lot of spots to fill in as well. And I don't think they're going to be able to fill up everything. Are they willing to go ahead and give Leon Delmont another hefty contract? I wouldn't imagine that it would be as big as it was his initial uh re-signing for Seattle, which I believe was like what five? It was like the 5 year, 100 million
Yeah, it
mark,
was a
I
5 year, 100
believe.
million deal. I don't think we're going to be seeing that again from him anytime soon. But Seattle, they could definitely take their pick. They have Soren Smith up there, sixth ranked player. Could be a guard. Could be someone to bring in potentially as a backup in case they can't get Vilkasitis to return. Marlowe, similar boat. I could see them taking one of the two guards up there to be a hey insurance plan just in case something doesn't work out. And obviously, their shooting guard position is not super settled either. They traded away uh, a guard and re-signed, well, essentially got back Atheos, who is serviceable, but I don't know if he's a starting shooting guard or even a starting point guard for this team.
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely a lot of it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here. Obviously, they're still with the little bit of the shakeup that they did with the trade that they had earlier in this off season. There's going to be a little bit of risk of what they want to go here, especially with the fact that they do have with Atheos coming in. Not a lot of success that Atheos really did had. I believe they were with Vegas last year. Yeah, they were with Vegas last year. So we're coming back into Seattle. So there's some familiarity there at least. um, when it comes to Atheos, but would it be for a starting position? I'm not too sure. I would be more confident in him if he was just more so coming in, kind of being that quality six for more so than not. But yeah, I could definitely see either Soren being that big jump. Like I said, it's definitely going to be a somewhat of a steal since Soren is uh the sixth available, the sixth ranked here in the top 24. Um, and you can also probably see Rice as well to potentially be there to kind of give you some forward depth.
Well, speaking of, the pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage. With the ninth pick in the FBA draft, the Seattle Summit select Ivoni Borganzas, the Alicorn out of Thunder Bay University. Congratulations, Borganzas. With that, the 10th pick, Williamsburg, is on the clock. So they ended up reaching a little deeper than I was expecting, and they did go for a swing fur, which might be a little bit more freedom in their what they're looking at, trying to have.
Yeah, I think it's just like trying to find a little bit of flexibility here, within this, within the decisions, because I do believe that when it comes to Seattle and what's going on with them in free agency, they do have quite a few players that they're looking at here in free agency that they might be looking to come in or even perhaps even bring back, especially when it comes to guys like Leon and uh and Andreas. So I think this is just possibly one of those like, hey, they're gonna continue to try and bring everybody that they had back into the fray, as well as go ahead and try and have a deeper bench that they had compared to last year.
Yep, I agree. I mean, I think the idea of bringing someone in to be that 2-3 spot, there are questions there ever since Blake Kelly was traded. I think it sounds like they're confident in getting Vilkasitis back with this selection. So we'll have to see how that shakes down in free agency. But let's cut on over to Williamsburg, who obviously they have one big free agent I think everyone's talking about with Linwood and the
Yeah.
expectation about whether or not they're going to be able to bring her back. Then you obviously have Michaela Marley, who sat on the bench for so long for Williamsburg, but stuck around and eventually found her way to the starting lineup. Are they going to continue going forward with her in this situation?
Yeah, it's certainly gonna be interesting of what they decide to do here. Obviously, there has been I think Michaela Marley has fought so hard to be able to finally crack into the starting lineup. We've seen her kind of be one of the top 6 for a player for goodness knows how long. And being able to try and continue to do it, and she's done a very good job here for as a starting shooting guard here. But it just really depends on how much Williamsburg is willing to give when it comes to a contract for Tanya Linwood. Now, I don't believe that there are okay, so there is a couple of teams that have um inquired for her, I believe in the rumors right now currently is Williamsburg and the Venom. Um but it's gonna be kind of one of those things as to how far are they willing to go for Tanya compared to Michaela.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they took one of the top two guards still on the board, either Marlowe or Smiths here, just because they do have their starting point guard uh, only under another 2 year contract. You know, Marcella has kind of floated between being the starter, and then sometimes they put Vera Latiera in at starter. So maybe trying to grab a backup plan just in case for Michaela Marley if they do decide if they're going to focus on Linwood to have someone they could potentially put into that second spot. So I think going guard here wouldn't be a terrible route, especially with both of them being higher ranked than their position that Williamsburg sits at. You know, they could be saying they're walking with a little bit of steel here if they take either Marlowe or Soren.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think Soren probably makes the most sense if they do decide to go ahead and move on from Michaela if the contract for Tanya ends up being a little bit too steep for them. The only thing that I have to say is that I'm not too worried about is because the fact that their bench is already essentially set for
Mm-hmm.
the next couple of years. So that gives them an ability to kind of spend a little bit more than they would for this year. Obviously, they do have to be careful considering the fact that if they kind of overdo it, when it comes to how many years they add on to that contract, that is something that they're going to have to pay attention to as well.
Well, speaking of the pick is in, let's see who's coming off the board now. With the 10th pick in the 2025 FBA Draft, the Williamsburg Minutemen select Soren Smiths, the barn owl out of Lorraine Central High School. Congratulations, Smiths, on being selected. Alaska Arctics, you are on the clock. So they did decide to go guard. I will say my one question with Soren, obviously coming out of high school, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the kid, especially if he ends up finding himself in the starting lineup due to not being
Yeah,
able to re-sign Marley.
this is this is a toughie for me because that is one thing that is a little bit of well, yes, he definitely ranked fairly high compared to the competition who has had some collegiate slash professional experience outside of the FBA, which is very deserving. And you got to give credit where credit is due here. However, when you're 18 years old and you're stepping in, like coming fresh out of high school, stepping into the atmosphere from the FBA and potentially having to start, that's gonna be a lot. So I feel like this is gonna be a lot of growing pains if they're not able to bring Michaela Marley back. But if they do decide to bring Marley back, um, who better to be able to learn the ropes under than Michaela, in my opinion. So, like, this is definitely going to be a bang for your buck type of scenario for Williamsburg because, yes, this is going to be a lot of question marks when it comes to the maturity of Soren overall as a player. Because he's still a kid at the end of the day, and he's freshly 18. um, so I think that that's going to be one of the big questions for him in the long run, especially if they do decide to go ahead and give him that starting position.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the free agency shakes out. I think that'll be the main determining factor for them. Let's jump into Alaska now. They have their lineup is a little interesting. They had a great showing 2 years ago, and then this last season wasn't quite what they were hoping for. It was a little bit of a playoff hangover. I mean, obviously they made it back to the playoffs, but they just did not have that same success that they were looking for after the season 2 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have quite a very nice roster here with Rav and Terry pretty much being that 1-2 punch here. Now, I think the big thing here is possibly if they want to continue developing with the development of Devin Dukes as well, being that big fur. Probably trying to find that good solid partner because they really haven't found that partner for him yet.
Yeah, their power forward position, obviously, Shaywan, we've seen him start, and it can work, but I feel like there's a ceiling that he's hitting that they need to find someone with a slightly higher ceiling. In that case, going forward here would potentially make sense. Go for like Dresden, Karon Snyder, uh, Arsena Kayev. There's a couple of fours at this point still on the board that could be the power four going forward. Because again, their starting lineup besides the power forward position is mostly solid. I mean, Rav, their shooting guards a little. I could argue maybe Tex isn't the best day to day. He's more of a matchup specific. Terry O'Toole at small forward or sliding to shooting guard if needed, and then you need to find someone for power forward or small forward.
Yeah, so I guess the question would have to be is like, do you think that they would go ahead and try to go for Reese to kind of fill in that small forward position to slide Terry over to the shooting guard position? Or do they say, you know what, we may go ahead and go for more of a big fur type forward? I believe Avery is a big fur type forward. Let me double check to make sure.
I mean, he's six
Yep.
eleven, so
Yeah, he's 6'11", so
Reeves is also not a small guy. I mean, you see, he's 6'9", yes, but 270. Like that
yeah.
is power forward body. Might not have the same height you want for your normal power forward, but with
hmm
his bulk, because that's the thing, you're either going to go bulky with Reeves, or you're going to go more of a athletic power forward with Avery. Um,
Yeah. So I guess it just depends on like the type of style that they really want to play. And Devin Dukes is already very athletic also, so that might come into play as well.
Yeah, and like I said, they may want someone either complements that play style or is the opposite of him, and they can have a bigger body that can be that post anchor, which I kind of like. I during the sports dens, I've definitely mentioned I like to see that big anchor available to sit there and lock down the post.
Yeah, 100%. I think that that's something that like I feel like that's probably what is makes for a successful power forward like a big fur front line is
Front
being
court.
able to go ahead. Yeah, front court. Thank you. Brain melting. Anyways, having the best front court is being having to have the best of both worlds and having those work together. Having someone who is athletic, maybe able to spread the floor a little bit with their athleticism, while having someone who can be that lockdown big that can come in the help defense and block any time that they need to. So I would not be very surprised if they decide to go ahead and go for Reese here because of that, and really kind of excuse me, and really be able to kind of utilize that to kind of improve the ability to that Devin Dukes could have on this roster.
Well, speaking of the pick is in, let's see what the selection is. With the 11th pick in the 2025 FBA Draft, the Alaska Arctics have selected Kingsley Fletcher, the Pembroke Welsh Corgi, out of Thunder Bay Predator College. Congratulations, Fletcher. Huntsville Mares are now on the clock. Okay, Marcus, they picked someone 2 feet, a foot and a half shorter than either of us were expecting at 5'3".
Oh yeah, definitely definitely a small bean.
Again, I can
um
count on my wing the number of furs that are smaller than me in the FBA, and I root for the little guy. I do. Maybe they're thinking, some bench depth, backup for Rav. Maybe moving Rav to shooting guard and letting Fletcher come in to play point. Potentially, might be their goal.
yeah, it's certainly interesting. In all honesty, I would have thought that they would have possibly go for Jet here if they wanted to go for guard, obviously, with being the best guard available at this current moment. It's a little bit of a surprise here, especially with a player that is, relatively on the smaller end. Um, uh, on it. Now, obviously, you like being size doesn't mean everything in this league. We have seen plenty of small guards end up being turn out to be powerhouses for their respective teams. So, this could be potentially a situation here with Kingsley.
Yeah, pretty sure there's a couple highlights of a certain bunny crossing you over, and
Very funny. Anyways,
but with that, let's jump into Huntsville with the 12th overall pick. They find themselves exactly in the middle of the standings last year. And, their team, you talk about a team with cap hell, they're technically at -2 right now. Uh, they need to do something about clearing some cap space. And, I mean, they obviously can make that decision with a trade here, getting rid of the player, getting rid of the pick.
that could potentially be the possibility. I mean, they have invested in quite a lot within it, and they're gonna have to do something, have to get into trade with somebody. Like, I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide to trade back or find someone to give a salary dump very, very quickly, in order for them to get out of that cap hell, because they do have a lot of players that they need to fill at the end of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go ahead and trade back. Actually, possibly even trade out of this draft entirely just to save some space. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a lot of scrambling here.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could still, I don't know, do they still have their amnesty clause as well? No, they do. They could technically also amnesty one of their players if that it comes down to it. Because there are, between, I hate to say it, either Okayu, they have a hefty contract. If they had to,
Caillou,
both of them are 12 and 19 million, so they could pick between one of them. If they draft here, maybe this might be an indication of who they might be trying to move on from.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, and also you probably have to look at Vash as well. Well, yes, Vash has kind of really been the staple for Huntsville as well. That's still a very hefty contract. Like a lot of people, because I know in the beginning when we had the ability to max with 20 million a year, there were definitely quite a few players
30 million?
that 30 million. I said 20.
You
I
said
think you said
20. We
30.
haven't
I
had
said
20.
20.
Marcus, what era are you from? The 20 million cap, the 20 million max contract was like 25 years ago.
No, I mean, okay, like what I'm saying is it's just like being able to get closer to that 20 million cap.
30 million.
um anyway, I'm going to like drop kick you. But anyways, so we've seen as of recent, like when it comes to, especially since we've had like the cap extension between 90, that some players were able to go ahead and get much higher picks. Well, be able to get closer to that range. But now I've seen a lot of teams being a little bit hesitant trying to go reach that far, because obviously you want to be able to, make sure that certain players are very happy within the league. However, you do still need to have a good amount of depth on your team as well. It's very difficult to win with just your star players anymore. It's been a very long time since we really had a team that won just because they had, like, a top 5 player in the league. That's how really good that this year has really been.
Yep. And Huntsville has put their pick in. Let us jump down to the stage. With the 12th overall pick, the Huntsville Mares select Reese Dresden, the Tully Monster out of Ruby Valley College in Elko. Congratulations, Dresden. San Jose, you are on the clock. Well, we were a pick early predicting Dresden.
Yeah, we were. And I think that does give an indication of who they may use that amnesty on. Um which obviously this is not something that you really want to find yourself in, unfortunately. But they're gonna have to make some sort of move to be able to get some kind of cap space available to them. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of shakeups when it comes to Huntsville, especially now since they really don't have the team to really kind of make it far anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go ahead and try to find any sort of reason to blow things up.
Yes. Sorry, I was looking at the board. Something's a little. Yep. Okay, I see. Everything looks good. Uh, yeah. I mean, again, it's not a. I think this is an indication of what they're going to do. Let's talk about San Jose, because I mean, honestly, Huntsville, they need to sort their cap situation, and there's a lot of questions. Like, they can't even sign a free agent, technically. They technically can't make the playoffs right now if they don't resolve their cap situation. So, whatever they do, they have to find some money, whether that means they sell a pick or they cut a player. So, let's talk about San
Yeah.
Jose, sitting here also in the middle of this league. A team that needs kind of a guard, in my opinion. Yona Vastenhoot is Lady Black, I love, but they kind of need a shooting guard.
Yeah, Yona Vassenhood, Joseph Nah, neither of them really kind of stood out for me when it comes to San Jose. And I wouldn't really be surprised if they do decide to go ahead and go for guard here, which, obviously looking at Jet, it could potentially be the answer to that. Because other than that, they do have a good starting lineup, but of course, the big question for me is really, do you have a lot of faith in your depth at the moment? Because we do have a couple of players that are a little bit up there in age. I know Dewitt is going into free agency this year because he is currently a free agent. Oh, excuse me. And
Are you drinking, Marcus?
I'm not drinking. I'm drinking water. That's just it. I'm just a little gassy. Don't worry. I'm fine.
But yeah, I can see a guard selection here definitely, and I mean he has been sliding down just a little bit. We're at the 13th overall pick. Would be a terrible spot to fall to in San Jose, and I think in
Yeah.
fact the pick is in. Let's go down, and they were ready to go quickly with the 13th overall pick. The San Jose Thrust select Zypher Leeward, the laughing gull out of Baltimore Bay. Congratulations, Leeward. With that, the Alaska Arctics are back on the clock. Interesting. They did go guard, but they decided to go a swing fur.
That's a very interesting thing. So they might look at free agency a little bit to probably fill in that starting shooting guard role, because like this is around the time when we start seeing players that are more so going to be allocated to the bench, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's I mean there are uh this is like I said the edge where like okay, you're starting to look for backups or you're starting to look for future starters. So I don't hate this idea of going for a swing fur because they do kind of need a shooting guard. So this is a tryout for them basically. But I want to talk about Alaska being back on the board and actually, hang on, the commissioner's already come out. Dang, they must have had their pick in ready to go. We have a trade we would like to announce. The Alaska Arctics send Devin Dukes and the first round pick number 14, this current pick, to the Las Vegas Wildcards in exchange for a sign-and-trade deal of Brandon Baylor for 61 million over 4 years. With that, the Las Vegas Wildcards are on the clock. Well, draft shenanigans finally hitting us, and it's halfway down the board.
I okay. I don't know what to say here.
Well, okay, so Alaska got a center that we talked about we talked about having a big body to complement Devin Dukes' play style, and then they go and trade the skinny body for a big body, but now they need to complement the big body with someone, but they're not in the draft anymore.
I don't okay, I have this might be something I'll talk about with people later. For now, that's very surprising to me. When it comes to Vegas making such a huge move. Oh God, I'm trying my best to collect my thoughts right now. So
Well, okay, let's focus on this. LVG.
okay,
It sounds like they maybe didn't expect to keep Brandon for something that was reasonable. Now, I will say that contract offer. Let me look. I'm trying to see what Alaska had him down for. All my papers. I need to find my papers. I put away Vegas's. Devin Dukes, 10.5, 11, 12. Okay, so Brandon did go for 5 million more than that. So perhaps this is them trying to keep Tyreek because they couldn't afford to keep Brandon and Tyreek.
Yeah, that's the only way that I can make sense of this. And considering that Tyreek has been in the league a little bit longer, it makes sense that they want to go ahead and solidify their backcourt a little bit. It's just, oh man, okay. Let me. All right, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here.
Let's talk about Vegas now. They only have 3 players really. Well, Ivy Robbins 1-year deal. Jean Ferdinand 1-year deal. Warren Doyle 1-year deal. Ronan London is the only player besides Devin Dukes now that has a multi-year deal still. So they have every position they need, and they're about to be on the board again in 2 picks because they are also picking at 16.
That's what makes it so intriguing because like this is so Vegas. Why do they always do this? It's okay. But Vegas has always been a very go big or go home type of team. So making trades like this is not surprising. And what's going to make this very interesting is that this is clearly a retooling. They have felt like that being able to make where they were.
The finals twice in a row? They need to retool?
I don't know, okay? I'm trying to make sense of this too. My nephew got freaking traded. Okay, let me focus.
Well, yeah, you need to talk to him. He signed the contract. It's not like he didn't know this.
I know.
Do you know? Because apparently you didn't.
We'll talk. But in any case, I think that this is going to be one of those situations where they feel that they can find another big around here, which they can. There's still a couple of bigs, I believe, that are still available right now. Let me double check to make sure.
Well, I'm not going to give you time, Marcus, because the pick's already in. The clock, they ran out.
Well, okay.
So let's jump on down to the stage. With the recently traded 14th overall pick, the Las Vegas Wildcards select Seth Callaway, Otter, out of Moosehead University of Central Florida. Congratulations, Callaway. With that, the Pittsburgh Keystones are on the clock.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I mean, to your point, they did just draft a center. They just traded for a center, though. They didn't need another center.
Well, they probably need. I don't know. Okay, I don't. No, this could be them trying to retool and try to give a little bit more depth here in the front court, because that might be something that was a little bit lacking. Okay, I am trying my best to think on what
I
they were thinking
I
here.
made it all the way to pick 14 before I lost my mind. I'm going to consider that a new
I
record. I will
and
say
I thought,
Seth Callaway is that big body that could complement playing with Devin Dukes. I will give them that leeway of, hey, maybe they were listening to what we were talking about and they already had that in the back of their mind that they could get a center that could play that style, and that's what they wanted.
so then what my big question is now is, what about Ivy Robin? Obviously, Ivy Robbins her last will be on the last year of her contract with 10 million. With this move, does that potentially make her trade bait as well? I don't know. Um,
I
but
will say,
at the end of the
hey, you brought up the point. Around this point is the time that you see uh, backups being selected. So
that is
Callaway
fair.
might very well just be, hey, we need a center backup. Why not just pay $3 million to have one rather than trying to find one in
Yeah,
free agency?
that's totally understandable. Now you make me wish I had a drink up here, right? Because I need one after that one. Holy, oh
Well,
my
let's
goodness.
focus on Pitt, the team that's actually on the clock right now at the 15th pick.
Yes, yes. So I guess like when it comes with Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh has always been a very interesting team to me. Now, obviously, they do have Garland heading into free agency, and that has kind of been their go-to starting point guard for the longest time. Like, and I guess the question really becomes like, is this going to be another retooling situation? Because they have a lot of cap space available here, for Pittsburgh.
They do. Again, they don't have long contracts. Nur, who I believe was traded for recently, because that was originally on Hawaii, and they may have played Pitt this last year. Yes, they played
I
on Pitt
believe
this
so.
last
Yes.
year. So Pitt, Nur's under 2 more years, so I think they're good at guard. Even though I could see them picking Marlowe here, just because again, the eighth-ranked player falls into your paws at 15. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, to your point, they do have uh, some of the everything else is open. They could pick a forward, they could pick a shooting guard.
Yeah.
I like Marlowe here, in my opinion, but I could see Avery coming off the board. Fine, well, finally, he's the 12th ranked player. We've just
Yeah.
seen like 3 players picked further down, 4 players picked further down already. So it's like, okay,
Oh
when are we
yeah.
gonna
This
start
this
seeing forwards come off the board?
Oh yeah, no. There's been quite a few teams that have reached a little bit here within this draft. Now, with Pitt, it's interesting because I also have to be curious as to if they want to go ahead and press the panic button, because I believe those were no. We still have one more big fur that is available here, and Margot Warrior is there, but 18 million is a lot, and I don't know if Margot's going to be asking for that same size of contract once it's up. So it could be a situation where they may have to go ahead and look at finding a big for the future.
Yeah, and speaking of, the pick is in. Let's see who comes off the board at 15, or maybe we have another trade with the 15th pick in the 2025 FBA Draft. The Pittsburgh Keystone select Avery Crone Snyder, the raccoon out of Florida Midwest University. Congratulations, Crone Snyder. With that, Las Vegas is back on the clock. Alrighty, we have a forward off the board. That's the second forward gone in the last couple picks. Well, the last 4
Yeah,
picks, I should say.
within the last 4 picks, and honestly, I can't blame them necessarily because there aren't really a lot of small forward options coming into free agency this year. And with Desmona Iverson, I believe, yeah, going into free agency, as well as Nora, there's going to be a lot of discussion as to who's going to really kind of come in and be that staple in that small forward position, because that's honestly the most flexible position. Really, you can fit anyone that could be more forward based or someone who can be a little bit like can help out with the backcourt as well. So I can't really blame them here going for Avery with this selection.
Yeah, and I want to talk. We're back to Vegas on the clock. We've had two picks to catch a pick to catch our breath.
Yes, a pick, and I'm still
Flabbergasted, I know.
flabbergasted, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, this is obviously it's not too big of a loss. I mean, with the fact that Seth Callaway was the first of the picks that was selected, being a guard, I wouldn't be not guard. What am I talking about?
A
Being a
center.
big fur, yeah, a center. So we could potentially see them going to focus on guard. I've mixed my positions up. That's what I meant to say.
I mean, I agree.
Um,
Jet Marlowe could come off the board here. I also don't necessarily hate Gale or Viviendo coming off. Viviendo had a great combine game. Like, I was shocked how much he stood out with his starting game. So I could very well see them going that route just as kind of like a backup in case they don't get Tyreek back.
Yeah, I mean that is a potential here. I mean have they do have quite a bit of room now if I recall correctly with bringing in Devin Dukes, who I believe only had like what 10 million.
It's a 10.5, 11, like 12. It's not
Yeah,
a
it's not.
bad contract for a
Yeah,
starting center.
yeah, it's not a bad contract. So you still have plenty of cap space to really kind of play around with. It just like depends on how you would want to go ahead and fill up your bench as well. That's kind of the big thing. And honestly, I think going Jet here would be a very wise decision because you're getting a top 8 player within this year's top 24. So that's a huge plus. And you could give you get opportunity to have a little bit more flexible when it comes to like play style as well when it comes to Vegas, especially if they're looking to try and go back to the finals.
Yes, well, I see the pick is in. They didn't need long after they traded for the pick higher. Let's see if they had someone else in mind already. With the 16th overall pick, the Las Vegas Wildcards select Aharon El Sharif, the Barbary Lion from Great Kings University. Congratulations, El Sharif. With that, the Montana Howlers are on the clock. Well, we had our first non-top 24 ranked player selected, Marcus. It's finally broken. It's going to happen now. We're going to have some more reaches come in.
Yep. I mean, that's kind of how it really is for a lot of these situations. So now we probably going to have a couple of the people who are in the top 24 shaking a little bit since it was bound to happen eventually, but now we are guaranteed at least one of the top 24 are not going to be able to get picked up in the first round. Who it is, we won't know, but when it comes to the pick itself, Aharon, not a bad pick. I don't think so. Though it's very interesting considering the fact that both Aslabank, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and Victor also still being on the board, but still just decided to go ahead and go for one of the on the cusp players.
Yeah, obviously someone they liked, and if you're talking about retooling, you go necessarily with the player that you think is going to develop more over the seasons. Now, I want to jump into Montana because there's a player on the board that we keep seeing slip, we keep bringing up. Does Jet Marlowe finally get picked up here with the 17th pick on the 8th ranked player?
I mean, I think that this definitely I think so, to be honest with you. Especially looking into Montana's roster, obviously they have Callum Williamson set for. Oh no, never mind.
He's in
I'm
free
looking at
agency
the
right
wrong
now.
thing.
That's the question.
Callum Williamson is in free agency at the moment, and it really depends on how much it's gonna cost for them to bring him back. They don't have a lot of cap space either, so that's going to be one of the big concerns, I believe. that's going to be like the big question, especially with how things are going for them. Now, obviously, Bertie Lavoy Williams is there for one more year, but for 16 million. There are definitely a lot of like hefty contracts on the roster right now, but majority of them are from players that are starting, I believe.
Yeah, the question is their bench, and I mean that's where I kind of see even if they want to go for Marlowe here, just to think of hey, the eighth ranked player will at least be a good bench depth if we do bring back Callum, but Arsena Kayev forward position wouldn't be a bad pick. Again, at this point, you're starting to start considering, okay, what bench depth do we want?
Yes. This is essentially the time where like you'll find that quality depth player to really kind of come in for your second unit to either be a spark or being that uh good anchor to make sure that your main anchor get a good amount of rest if needed. And obviously potentially having to start if need be in case a player goes down. So those are some of the things that people are going to have to look into when it comes to picks like this. Usually you don't really see a lot of players start around at this late in the draft, but it's still an option here as well, especially if it comes to a team that might be moving on from a starter caliber player that got them to that got them to this pick in the first place.
Speaking of, the draft selection is in. Let's cut down to the stage. With the 17th overall pick, the Montana Howlers have selected Gail Swindon, the Gray Squirrel out of University of Minneapolis. Congratulations, Gail. With that, the Baltimore Spirits are on the clock. A
All right,
guard
then.
was picked, but not Marlowe.
Not the guard that was picked. That is, oh man, that is has been very intriguing to see here. Um, I'm not really sure as to why Jet has been falling as of late, but again, when looking into Montana, like this is one of those situations where they are looking for the guard depth because the bench has kind of been the biggest question mark for them coming into free agency this year. Well, that's one of them. Obviously, the other is how much will it take for us to get Callum back, to continue to be our main starter for the Howlers. But I can't necessarily blame them for going for Gale. Gale is a solid player.
Yeah, and again, I like her play style. She's going to be a kind of player that draws the contact and really tries to get the other team in foul trouble. And I like that with Montana coming off the bench to be able to do that. Oh, well, Baltimore is on the clock, but I see the pick already. Actually, I don't see a an envelope. Let's see what the commissioner has to say. There has been a trade. The 18th overall pick from the Baltimore Spirits has been sent to the Dakota Bikers in return for Jose Caristados and Dakota's second round pick, the 46th overall. With that, Dakota, you are now on the clock. Okay, Marcus, we have a trade, and it involves. I'm a little surprised at Baltimore. They got a point guard, but they could have had Jet potentially.
Yeah. It's certainly a very interesting situation here. Dakota, I believe they have been looking for. They're probably looking to look into the future a little bit now because they have been on top of the West for so long, but it's been a while since they've been able to even get to the finals, and they've made it so close so many times these past few years. But I'm not too surprised that they're willing to go ahead and do a little bit of risk and go for a trade up here in this scenario.
But are they looking at picking up Marlowe? Is that why they've done this trade up to get a player that they see falling, or was there someone else on the board that they were hoping would still be here at this point?
That's honestly a great question because, like, I don't know, man. I think I think to be honest with you, even if, with this trade up, going for Marlowe here would not be a bad situation, especially considering the fact that with with Matt and John, you know, the splash furs of the FBA have pretty much had that mantle for a very long time. We do have to put into consideration that both of these players are, oh my god, freaking back. That, you know, both the players are getting older, and especially with the fact that John is on his last couple of years of this contract. I can't blame them if they decide to go ahead and go for to go for Marlowe here, because you can't ask for anything better in this scenario, to trade up and get one that could easily be the steal of the draft, and to make 17 of these other players, these other teams, regret their decisions of letting this player drop as far as they did. I think it would be quite an interesting storyline to dive into.
Well, the pick is in. Let's see what Dakota was waiting for to fall to them that they felt they needed to trade up for. With the 18th overall pick, the Dakota Bikers select Luka Stevanovic. Oh, I will get that name at some point. I'm sorry. The draft from the EFBL. Frankfurt. Oh, there's a little smudge there, but congratulations, Luka, on being selected 18th overall. 19th pick. Bangor Tides are now on the clock.
Okay, I'll shut up now.
I'm surprised they passed over Blazikowski and they went with Stevana Chich. I'm going to correct the commissioner there. Stevana Chich or Stevana Kitch. I'm not 100% sure. I'll get yelled at some point.
Oh, we get yelled at all the time. It's fine. It's totally fine. But this is our second on the cusp player to be able to make it into the first round. So congratulations to Luca, which is very interesting here because obviously when it comes to the Big Fur scenario, Mika Mishima is on their way to free agency, and there's not a lot of cap space available for Dakota, so there's a good chance that Mika was probably not going to be back on this roster. So possibly potentially getting a young big that could probably fill in those shoes, or um or perhaps if they want to go ahead and bring Benjamin Derby for one more round for a cheap
One
contract.
more round.
For a cheap contract to help kind of develop Luca could be the play here.
Yeah, the Stevana Chick will be an interesting player to see. A bit of a stretch big, loves his fadeaway, and he's going to a team that loves to stretch the floor already as is. Be interested to see how he matches up if they do decide to start him or if you're going to have him develop off the bench. But we have to go to Bangor now, who have the 19th pick, most of the way through the draft. Who is left on the board right now that they could go for besides Marlowe? Even though, do they really need a guard here?
I not really, because obviously with the fact that there's a little bit of competition for their respective players, as we've mentioned before, with Ash Van Zandt and Angel, having options in this for this offseason. I wouldn't be too surprised here if they decided to go ahead and go for a potentially a small forward. In my opinion, perhaps they could have Victor Bughoff fill that role, or oh god, I'm gonna butcher this so bad. Aslan Beck possibly could fill in that role as well.
Yeah, and I mean Bangor. Their big question is with Ash heading into free agency, obviously, like you said, and a center heading into free agency as well. A pair of them with category, because remember, they had 2 first-round picks that year, and they selected both Angel and category. So I'd be shocked if they keep both of them. So maybe going center here at Blazikowski But, you know, bench depth would not be bad at this point either. They really don't need Marlowe because they have two guards locked up for a while. So I wouldn't
Yeah,
feel terrible in them passing here.
no, I wouldn't feel that bad about it either, considering the fact, as you said, their backcourt is locked up, at least the starting one anyway. The only thing that you would need, um, for Marlowe is to be probably your primary sixth fur, possibly. Maybe a potentially battle with Naima King for that slot, potentially. And you can't really blame them for going down that route if they decided to go there.
Yeah, well, speaking of, the pick is in. Let's see who is going to Bangor with the 19th overall pick. The Bangor Tides have selected Belshade Tolve, the dice snake out of Baltimore Bay. Congratulations, Tolve. With that, verifying the 20th pick is the Arizona Demons. You are now on the clock. So they went guard, but they went a bit of a taller guard. They can more easily, I think, fit that second spot. But that is an interesting choice. Poor Marlowe.
Yeah, poor Marlowe indeed. Seeing him slip so far to potentially even going out of the first round is very, very surprising to me. But
Hey,
looking
you
over
brought it
in,
up. You said every year there's a guard
I
that
did,
slips, and it just so
I
happened that
did.
maybe two this year slip.
I didn't expect it to be like this big of a dip, though.
I mean, we're only 14 spots down at this point. Sorry, 12 spots down. It's not the end of the world. Now, of course, Arizona has pretty good set of guards because they have Zuri coming off the bench, who could be a starter in some teams.
Oh, yeah, that's what makes this situation a little bit more it becomes a little bit scary if I were Jet in this scenario, because there are a couple of teams on there that already have their backcourt essentially set. Um so man, I don't know, man. This is definitely one of those situations where you might have to like hold your breath, but looking into Arizona, as you said, man, I mean, they could potentially go for him, but I'm not too sure on it though, because obviously they do have Oakland to focus on trying to bring in, but they don't have a lot of cap space available with being under 25 this year for free agency. So it really depends on how big of a demand she brings, because she is still like the one of the biggest centers of her draft class.
And one of them's off the board now with Brandon signing in Alaska. You know, that took him off of free agency already. He's kind of set the tone of what the contracts are going to cost for them this draft class. That draft class of 2023.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what makes this a little bit intriguing, because if that is the average, which is around like 14, 15 a year, that's essentially a majority of the Demons cap. They'll have like 9 left. Doing the math there. So
I mean, their starting lineup
it,
is set for the most part at the very least. I
it
mean, they
is.
aren't.
It is.
Now the question becomes: their floof Kyler Renari is on his last year, and 12 million was a very team-friendly deal that obviously he took as a rookie. So he was, there were still questions about him, but it's hard to say that he's not a top 10 uh, swing for, if you want to be very specific, probably a top 5 guard in the league. Obviously, they play him more at small forward right now.
Yeah, and obviously if they're looking to possibly go ahead and give him a pretty sizable contract, that's going to be something to keep in consideration as well. So there's going to be a lot of decisions that they're going to have to make here to really see what direction they're going to go to. I do think that they really want to bring Oakland back.
Oh, no
So
doubt.
maybe they'll probably try and avoid getting a center just in case. Um, I might cross my fingers on Jet just for the potential of maybe not having Kyler or just having that overall depth to improve.
Speaking of, the pick is in. Let's see who's going here at number 20 overall. With the 20th pick in the 2025 FBA Draft, the Arizona Demons select Aslanbek Arsenukayev, the Dragon from Green Ravine University. Congratulations, Aslanbek. Lorraine Firestorm are now on the clock. They went big. They went forward. So Jet to Lorraine.
Yeah. Well,
we have to get there at some point.
yeah, we could. I mean, looking at Lorraine's roster right now, I do think that um with Maria Davenport, being locked up for the next couple of years, and Teresa on her way out, I think that the going guard here would not be too big of a surprise here. But there's also the situation of potentially moving on from Edwin as well, as he's entering into free agency. It's a question of whether or not they're going to be bringing him back, I would say. From what I know when it comes to the rumor mill, I don't believe they really gave him an offer as of yet. And another team has, and I believe that was the Spectrums that has given him an offer. So that could potentially come into play as well, possibly potentially going big for here. So, oh my goodness, I don't even want to say that. Excuse me if I botch this, but Blazejowski, yeah, I'm gonna go with that. That he could potentially come in and fill in that role, like again, top 24 player to potentially be in there. But it's really tough to say because there is quite a few slots that they can fill, and I can definitely see Marlowe being the choice here if we can finally get him off the board.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think going big is not a terrible idea because they also, again, they have Tyreek Kendricks, who's going to be a big target, especially if the centers that are currently out there start getting picked up and they have to, someone's going to start. The centers assigned first are probably going to have the lowest contracts, honestly, because teams are going to start getting more panicky as they become fewer and fewer.
Yes, I think that's certainly the case. I wouldn't be surprised, considering the fact that we do have our first center being picked up in Brandon, uh, into free agency. I think that got a lot of teams to pretty much all right, we got to pretty much rethink everything with how big of a contract that is, going into the second year, which isn't surprising because he is a player that did help a team make it to the finals twice in a row during his rookie contract. So it's going to be a pretty interesting to see how people are going to match that or surpass that if some of these centers think that they are better than him.
Well, the pick is in. Let's see what the commissioner has to say for Lorraine. With the 21st overall pick, the Lorraine Firestorm select Stepan Blazikowski, horse out of the EFBL. Congratulations, Stefan. With the 22nd pick, the Bangor Tides are back on the clock. So you're right. They did pick the player that you thought they would. They went for the center.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They still can go for it as well with Tyreek, depending on how much Tyreek is going to be demanding in free agency. I think this is probably the tell that they could be replacing Edwin with this pick. So having a very sizable front court if Tyreek does return would be very interesting because the Firestorm has always been that dark horse on the East. For a good while now, they've always been in the top half of the playoff seedings for these past few years, but it's just been trying to find that right combination to really get them over the hump to be potential contenders here in the FBA.
Yeah, again, they've Lorraine's been a team that has built themselves up. They've won the division, I think, 4 years in a row, 3 or 4 years in a row. Um, but now what changes they need to make to be that final push over to make that push deeper into the playoffs again. How can they beat Vegas or not Vegas? In the East, would probably be Tallahassee right now, obviously defending champions, but also Plymouth. Between those two teams, how do you beat them? What changes do you need to make? But let's talk about Bangor again. Back on the clock. Obviously, they made their selection of Bellshade, the guard. I doubt they pick another guard here.
I doubt that too. They could potentially go small forward, maybe. Because again, it's the question of whether or not they feel confident in bringing back Ash Van Zant. Obviously, considering the career that he has set himself up as. I mean, being one of the first cards to win Defensive Player of the Year in like well over a decade at this point. The last card that won it was Doral. So like that's a pretty big deal, I think, and um I would not be surprised if Ash would want that kind of money of being like, yeah, I'm like one of the best forwards in the league. So I want to be paid as such. So it really just depends on how much Bangor is willing to invest into that. Or if they want to say, you know what, they feel like they have a good enough team to where they can go ahead and plug in somebody new, a little bit of a bit of fresher legs to kind of go ahead and retool just a little bit.
Well, I see the pick is in. Bangor didn't need to debate long. With the 22nd pick in the 2025 FBA Draft, the Bangor Tide select Koa Cross, the Royal Spoonbill out of Saltbrush University. Congratulations, Cross. With that, the Biloxi Venom are on the clock. Well, they went with Swing Fur here, which kind of was half of what you were looking for.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Ash Van Zant's technically a swing for as well, so that checks out a little bit. But more guard focus, which is very interesting. I think they're really kind of looking into possibly retooling their guard depth a little bit. Bangor is. So I feel like that with the moves that they've made, they feel fairly confident that they are able to at least bring Angel back. Using their 2 first round picks, steering away from any sort of front court whatsoever. So I'm fairly curious as to what's going to really happen here if Angel doesn't decide to stick with Bangor and move on elsewhere.
Yeah, it's going to be a interesting one. They lose both of their centers. That could come back. I mean, obviously at this point they would have to have reached into the non-top 24 to grab a center or even a big fur. I mean, obviously Victor Bukov would have been available as a top 24. But at this point, it's all guards left in the top 24, so you have to feel bad for them. And with the 8th overall still sitting there, you have to imagine that the next guard off the board will be Marlowe.
It'd be, right? Like, I'm not crazy.
I mean, I am a little crazy after how this game has been, this night has been going.
Oh, you're telling me? But like going into the Venom, The Venom has been oh man. The Venom didn't really have the best luck of the draw, as they had the worst uh record last year, but ended up getting the fourth, but they ended up trading back all the way into the 23rd pick. So there's a lot that they could, so they're, even though that they really need somebody to kind of solidify and be that star, um they're not really going to get that here. So I'm very curious as to what they plan on doing here, but they could get the steal of the draft, as we said before, with Marlowe, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I mean, look at the Venom roster. You know, they kind of need everything. I mean, they technically have a guard locked in for 3 seasons. They have Agapito locked in for 3 years. They don't necessarily need a guard. Um, but if you have the 8th overall pick fall down to you, or 8th overall rated player, do you really not take him? I mean,
I I mean, like, I don't know about you, but if I am a team that hasn't really have been taken seriously for these past few years, I would go ahead and take it. Why not? There is no such thing as a wrong pick when you're in that kind of situation, right? I don't think they really need to find some sort of identity, and that could start with Marlowe.
yeah, again, a player they can maybe develop for the team. A player that they could restart with.
Yeah, because like even looking into a lot of the players that they have available, well, that they have under contract at the moment, like Reed has been decent, but again, really hasn't, you know, showed that, oh, this is a player that we have to look out for. Um, Agapito, also very decent player, hasn't really been showing me anything that showed that they can be like that mental starter. So like even though that they have guards that are set, that doesn't necessarily mean that they kind of are they elevate the team, really. They might be quality players, they might be they might be like decent starters, but they're not the type of starter that'll be like, oh, that's who we need to focus on in the game.
Yeah, and I mean it. This is a tough one because we get into the point of you're picking the second last pick of the first round. Typically, you're not expecting a um, top overall pick at this point, but you have the 8th overall available. So, what do you do here? And the pick
I
is
mean,
in. So let's go down to the stage and see if the wait is finally over. With the 23rd overall pick, the Biloxi Venom select Jet Marlowe. The Laughing Kookaburra from the FBL Sydney Blues. Congratulations, Marlowe. With that, the last pick of the first round, Seattle Summit, you are on the clock.
yeah.
Okay, we don't have to wait to the second round, but we don't necessarily know if going to Biloxi is the best case scenario for them as a player. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Honestly, if I am Jet, I'm probably fuming at the moment. It's like I get all the way up here and it's still a team that has not really been taken serious. But hey, that could be an opportunity to kind of put that chip on your shoulder and just say, you know what? I'm gonna take this in stride and come in and really kind of change the culture of this team. And that's what they really need right now, is someone to be able to change that culture.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen. Again, the player, they're maybe not coming into the team that's been in the best position the past couple seasons, but hey, they are only a few seasons removed from that championship. We just have to believe that, they can rebuild. And, getting the 8th overall pick with the 23rd pick, 8th overall ranked player, the 23rd overall pick might be the turning point for this team. We'll have to see what they can do with him, and if again he may even become draft bait at some or trade bait at some point, or one of the other guards on the team. So let's jump on over to Seattle, who have the last pick of this first round. Marcus, it has been flying by. Who
Yeah.
gets picked last for the first round? Because we have a lot of guards left on the board and only one forward in the top
Yep.
24.
Well, I feel like that forward is probably going to be entering the second round because they did pick up Ivani earlier in the draft. So, I guess it just really depends on picking your poison at guard, really, because we are having a lot of these players that are available right now. They pretty much have their own. It depends on like what kind of thing that they really want to add into, because this is definitely a pick that you want to use to fill in that second unit more so. So uh honestly, you might as well just go Tenoshi. That's like the best player available at this point. So you might as well just go ahead and take them there.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, I could see them also reaching for one of the centers. Obviously, the only on the cusp center was already taken by Dakota. So there's a couple bigs still available in the draft. Only three. We're entering the second round, and only three big firsts are left in this draft class. So there might be a run on them before we get too far into the second round.
Yeah, for sure. Like I, I think that like going for a center here would be an interesting choice. Especially I don't believe that they have that their depth for center is really that great, because they did have Scooney Barrett last year, but um it's not going to be a guarantee that he will be back. I wouldn't be surprised if Scooney considered retiring after last year. And there's also Jacqueline Turnbull, uh who is still there for the next couple of seasons, but I they're pretty much a serviceable role player overall. Not someone that I would be looking into being that spark personally. So they can't go really wrong here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they could go wrong. They could draft, well, they could trade the pick, maybe. That'd be the only way you could say wrong. But at this point, the 24th overall pick, you're like, okay, what are you looking at? Who do you really need? What won't be available later? And honestly, it's center again because they're how long are centers going to be on the board? Seattle doesn't pick again in this draft class because they traded away their second pick. So this is the last pick for them unless they trade back in. So speaking of, the pick is in. Let's go down to the final pick of the first round. With the 24th pick in the 2025 FBA Draft, the Seattle Summit select Vasilis Makris, the Griffin out of the EFBL. Congratulations, Makris. With that, we conclude the first round of the FBA Draft. We will begin tomorrow at the same time for the last 24 picks of the 2025 FBA Draft. I hope to see you all then, and we'll let the broadcasters finish up. Well, Marcus, you were right about center.
Yeah, not like it's at the end of the day. Considering that Scooney Barrett much older than what it used to be, there's not much you can really expect from them. So they have to get younger at that front court. When it comes to the front court depth. So going for Vasilis, I can certainly understand it. Obviously you're probably going to ask for a little bit more development as this is not a top 24 player. But it could be a great spot here, as Seattle has been a team that has made it to the playoffs very consistently. And I wouldn't be surprised if that development goes out and pays off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they are trying to re-sign, I believe, their Ackerman. So we'll have to see how that free agency prospect goes. Again, this is a player you do not expect to start anytime soon. Uh, this feels like they needed the depth, and they didn't want to risk trying to get that in free agency. $3 million a year for a player that wasn't even ranked on the cusp might be a little bit of a expense, but it happens. Unfortunately, again, only 2 centers now will be left for the rest of the draft. And I have a prediction that they will both be off the board before the 30th pick.
I agree with you.
So
I I wouldn't be surprised.
there's a couple guards that we expect to see taken. Again, some teams are going to be very happy that they had these guards fall to them. And obviously the rest of the teams will have to pick from the leftovers after that. So we will see tomorrow, with the first pick being Santa Ana Spectrums. In fact, they can have their pick of the litter. We'll dive into what their potential options are tomorrow. Any final thoughts, Marcus, as we wrap up the night? I know you're going to have to go make some calls after this because you're probably very angry that you did not get the scoop on a certain trade this night.
Gonna be a long night, but it's not about me, obviously, but a huge congratulations to all of the players that have been selected here in the first round. And if you haven't gotten picked yet, don't worry. We still got a whole nother round of play. And considering the fact that we do have exactly 48 players that have entered the draft, no one's going to be undrafted. So you're at least to get slotted somewhere, But at the end of the day, it's still going to be a fun time regardless, and I can't wait to get things started tomorrow.
Yes, thank you all for tuning in. I can't wait to see everyone tomorrow for round 2 of the FBA draft. Have a good night.